everyone, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, welcome. My name is Faith, and today I am going to be sharing with you my top 5 and worst 5 affordable eyeshadow palettes. I've been saying over and over again how this year I really want to focus on finding more drugstore or affordable eyeshadow palettes, so I thought I'd do like a little bit of an inventory of what I actually have right now and what has worked for me and what hasn't. And again, this isn't drugstore eyeshadow palettes, this is affordable eyeshadow palettes, so some of these you might have to get online and things like that. I do specifically want to find more drugstore eyeshadow palettes, so that is like a goal for 2018. But for today, we're going to be going over affordable eyeshadow palettes, which ones are worth it and which ones aren't. So if you want to see my top 5 and worst 5 eyeshadow palettes, then just keep watching. Okay, I'm going to alternate between good, then bad, good, bad, good, bad. Let's start with a good one. Actually, no. Let's start with a bad one. That way I can finish with a good one. The first eyeshadow palette that did not work for me whatsoever, sorry, it's morning, need coffee, was this Wet n Wild Nude Awakening eyeshadow palette. I think I've seen people that really do like this. For me, it just was patchy. It did not blend well. The colors had like barely any pigment. Let me see if I can just show you. Like, ugh, I don't know if you just saw all that powder kind of fall. It's just, do you see that swatch? Like, there's just nothing to it. It doesn't look bad on my finger, but then when I go to swatch, you can see it's just like, there's nothing to it. It's really powdery, and I just was not a fan of this. It's just no good. Now onto an affordable eyeshadow palette that I do think is worth your money. This is the Sleek Makeup Eyeshadow Palette. This is Under a Spell is the name of this, and just look at the colors here. I find that a lot of drugstore or affordable eyeshadows as well don't really play with color as much, so I thought that this would be a really good one to include to show you guys. The pigmentation on this is just so much better. Let me swatch this for you here. You can see like how much better that is compared to the Wet n Wild eyeshadow palette. There's also some really pretty shimmer shades in here. I did do a tutorial and I used this shade all over the lid. This was in my Valentine's Day makeup tutorial that I did a few weeks ago. A really nice palette, and they have a bunch of other palettes with this same formula, just different colors, so you can kind of go on their website and see if these colors aren't really what you're into. They have a bunch of others just like this. Okay, now on to another eyeshadow palette that I just don't think is worth it. And this may really surprise some of you, but I feel like there's gotta be some other people who agree with me. No shade at all towards Carly Bible. But this palette, I don't love it. And for how hyped up it is, I just still don't think it's worth it. Especially like the matte shades and then some of these highlight shades, they just don't do it for me. I don't know what it is. They just seem a little bit chalky. I mean, it's pretty, don't get me wrong, but let me just do a matte shade for you. See, it's kind of doing the same thing that the Wet n Wild matte shades do, and it's so powdery, like, I don't know if you can see that. It's just not good. The matte shades are just not good. And I think you can get better products for the same price, and so I kind of would just skip on this one. Okay, on to a palette that I do love. And this is another palette that I recently did a tutorial with. This is the Milani Bold Obsessions palette. This is one of Milani's new palettes, and you guys, this is so good. I did a tutorial where I put this gold shade all over my lid. I will show you a swatch. It's like literally amazing. This honestly rivals a lot of my high-end eyeshadow palettes. The mattes in here are great too. And again, you will see how in my swatch I get so much more pigment than in the Carly Bible one or the Wet n Wild one. It's just so much better. And if you buy this at Walmart, you can get it for an even cheaper price. I think on Milani's website this goes for like $20, which might not really be affordable to some people, but on Walmart you can get it for like 14, 15 bucks, which puts it more in that affordable price range, more of that like drugstore price range. They also have a palette that is full matte. I think I want to get my hands on that, but this again is the Bold Obsessions palette. It's just so good. Do you see that shimmer? Like, I'm obsessed with this palette. You can do so many different looks with this. It reminds me of a Tarte eyeshadow palette or like a Stila eyeshadow palette. Really, really nice, worth the money. Definitely, definitely recommend this. Okay, next up for eyeshadows that I don't think are worth it. This isn't actually one palette, but they all came together as like one. These are these e.l.f. eyeshadow duos. This is like a lighter one. This one is black and gray, and then it also came with a brown. And then in each one, there's like a matte and a shimmer. These are not good at all. And I know some e.l.f. eyeshadow like full palettes are supposed to be pretty good, but this, it's so dusty. You're not even gonna, like, you literally can barely see it. And even though e.l.f. is so affordable, like, I might even say, like, just if you literally have $1 to spend, maybe you try it. I think you'd be better off just saving that $1 and putting it towards something else. Also, I hate the packaging. It's so flimsy, like the top just falls right off. I just don't like this. Here's the brown shade. I'm gonna compare it to this Milani one. You can see the Milani one stays thick and like pigmented all throughout the swatch, whereas the e.l.f. one kind of stops halfway through because it's lost pigment. It's not as good, and I would not recommend these. Okay, on to an eyeshadow palette that I do love, that I think is worth your money. This is the Morphe 25A palette. I really enjoy this palette. I think that Morphe really does have really good affordable eyeshadows, especially the ones that look like this, like the square ones, the ones with the 25 shadows. I've heard that the eyeshadows that are formulated for this type of packaging, the 25 shadows, as opposed to, I think it's like the 38 ones, the bigger ones, these are supposed to be a little bit better. Let me just show you this matte. So nice. And I'll show you a shimmer shade. Just really nice. Definitely comparable to high-end. Beautiful palette. This, I think, I'll be putting all the prices as you guys have seen up on the screen, but it's almost around the drugstore kind of mark, and you get so many more shades than you would in a drugstore palette. So most drugstore palettes are probably like half the size of this, so take that into account when you're looking at the price of this. Okay, next up for affordable eyeshadow palettes that I don't think are worth it. These Revlon little compacts. I used to use these all the time in high school, and I literally have no idea why. I'm sure it worked for me because it didn't really, like, it was really good for like an everyday look, but that's just because like literally these have no pigment. I guess these are good for, you know, girls in middle school who are just getting into makeup, but there's literally no pigment in these at all. And they're so powdery. Like, that was supposed to be this bright lilac shade. There's nothing there. I used these all the time. That one's not terrible, that silver. This one here. But they're not that great. Let me do this dark purple. See, it just not a lot of pigment. Again, these might be good for like little girls or, you know, younger teenage girls who are getting into makeup, but all in all, if you're actually looking for a quality eyeshadow palette to do a look with, this is just not gonna give you what you need. That was supposed to be this like deep green olive shade. There's nothing to it. These, especially for just having these like tiny little pans, like these are pretty pricey, and it's just not worth it in my opinion. Okay, now don't get mad at me. No, not right now. Ooh. Don't get mad at me. I have another Morphe eyeshadow palette. This is another 25 Oh my gosh, people, leave me alone. This is another one of the 25 pan eyeshadow palettes from Morphe. This is the 25B. It does look somewhat similar to the 25A, but what you can tell from looking at this is that this one is definitely more warm toned and this one is more cool toned. So it just depends kind of what you want, but I wanted to include this as well. I won't go on about it because I did already talk about this palette. Okay, last eyeshadow palette I have for you that I'm going to tell you is not worth your money, and this is from Ulta Beauty. This is kind of along the same lines of that drugstore affordable makeup. Ulta normally has good prices, but this is just, it's not worth it. Let me show you this matte brown. This might be worse than the Revlon ones. Like, it's just, it's really bad. There's nothing to it. It's just not worth the money. Save your money and get some of these better ones. There's just nothing to it. This blue isn't terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. There's no pigment coming from these. They're very much lacking in pigmentation. And the reason I'm really disappointed in that too is because it had that really pretty pop of blue. Again, as I was saying earlier, it is hard to find pops of color in affordable palettes that actually have pigment and are actually really good. Which brings me to my final eyeshadow palette that I think is really worth it and has the pops of color that I think a lot of affordable eyeshadows are lacking. And that brings me to this very dirty Jaclyn Hill palette. Now I know this is, what is it, like $38? But again, look at what you're getting. You're getting all of these shades. If you think about how much this little Revlon guy cost and you multiply it out, it's basically the same price point per eyeshadow pan. And again, you're getting these gorgeous, gorgeous pops of color. Like, you're not gonna get this in many drugstore eyeshadow palettes. So I highly recommend that. Like, if you are looking to have a palette that will do it all for you, save up all your money that you're spending on these like really affordable smaller products and save it up and get this. This is just, honestly, it might be one of the best eyeshadow palettes I own. These light shades, oops, I just put my blue finger into the light shade. These light shades are just, how did that happen? How? These light shades are gorgeous. Oh my gosh, you put that all over your lid or in the inner corner and it's just fantastic. Oh, I love that. I want to do a look with those 4 shades. I've never put those 4 shades together. That would be such a pretty look. The black is black. It's just, it's so nice. And again, I want to say, I know that I titled this an affordable eyeshadow palettes, good and bad, and this is pricier, but you get so much, and I think if you break it down of how much you get, it falls back into that affordable price range. If you can't afford that though, I definitely would go for some of these others like the Milani, the Sleek. You can definitely get just as good of quality products, you just won't get as many shades. Okay, we need to get this off. Okay, that wraps up my video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. I hope that you found kind of which eyeshadow palettes might be worth spending the money on, because even though these are affordable eyeshadow palettes, it's still like a lot of money when you think about it. So you want to make sure that you're making the right decisions even though it is more affordable or drugstore type of eyeshadow palettes. I hope you found some good ones here and found out also what to avoid. I love you guys so much. Make sure that you're entered into my March giveaway. I will link that down below if you're new and don't know what I'm talking about. And I will see you in my next one. Bye!